Hey there. Today we're diving into something that might seem a bit controversial for some of you, and it's this idea that thinking is highly overrated. Yeah, you heard me right. Thinking. Before you react, I want you to stick with me because there might be something here that I can unpack for you that you might find a little bit powerful. If you like what I have to say here, please like, you can always share, you can comment, you can subscribe. So we live in a society that really worships logic. It worships the analysis of things and rational thinking. It's very left brain, especially for men. You know, we've been conditioned to believe that there's a logic solution to pretty much everything. Every problem, there's a logic way to work through it, right? We're told that the intellect can pretty much solve everything from our personal struggles to global issues. Arguably, you could say, well, isn't that what got us into this pickle in the first place? But I digress. Here's the thing. This over-reliance on rational thinking, it often traps us. It is a bit of a trap. So have you ever found yourself stuck in endless loops of thinking? So you've got a problem, an issue, you start to think about it, and then this comes in and this comes in, and you find yourself in this spiraling vortex almost of overthinking. It's like you're in this downward spiraling loop that you can't seem to get out of. You analyze every single detail. You obsess over every possible outcome. You can become paralyzed. There's this analysis paralysis stuff that happens. We're unable to make meaningful progress on some of these issues. And this happens because our minds, as incredible as they are, can rationalize just about anything. Ever notice how one day a study might say, coffee is really good for you, and here's the 5 reasons why. And then another day you'll find out that studies claim how harmful and debilitating drinking coffee can be to you. That's the rational mind at work. It's capable of creating arguments and justifications for almost anything, for any position. And that's why we find ourselves conflicted and confused. The reality is that we are very complex. We humans, we are these complex entities. We're individuals with unique emotions, with unique psychological makeup, and with unique physiological makeup as well. So there is no universal right or wrong. There is no logical formula that's going to work perfectly for everyone. But here's the thing, our institutions, our schools, our businesses, media, and even our families, we insist on this linear, logical model of life. You go get educated, you choose your career, you get into that partnership, you build that family, and then ultimately you retire. That's the model. That's the logical, rational model of things. What happens when this logic-based life doesn't deliver the happiness or fulfillment that we would expect from it, that it almost promises to us? At midlife, we kind of go like, what? Many of us wake up with this harsh truth. And despite checking all the boxes, making sure, we've got the career down, we've got the family thing going, and here we find ourselves empty, disconnected, without any passion. Oh my God, how did this happen? We've been following a script, but whose script is it really? And at this midlife point, many of us men, we experience what society calls a midlife crisis. We're in some ways desperate for change, right? We know that things aren't as we want them to be. And yet we'll cling to old solutions. This might look like, oh, I'm going to do some therapy sessions to try to make my way through this. Or maybe I'm going to go extravagantly spend some money and make some purchases. Maybe I'm going to have an affair to rebuild my virility, vitality, and feel like I'm young again. And really, a lot of this just serves to deepen the confusion. These are frantic attempts to use that logical mind to kind of find our way through this, to solve this problem that is this midlife quandary. So if logic alone isn't the answer, what's the alternative? I'd like to explore that. And there are 4 powerful ways we can free ourselves from the logical mind trap and reclaim a sense of freedom and a little bit more joy in our lives. So the first one I'd like to look at is cultivating a strong mind-body connection. And for me, as a yoga person, practice of yoga does this really, really well. It's a mind-body unifying practice, right? But there's also stuff like Tai Chi, Qigong, these actions where you're in your body and connecting with the body. They awaken a deeper intuitive intellect within all of us. And these practices anchor us in the present moment. So we're moving away from sort of obsessive thinking, because when we're in thinking mode, it's like thinking all this stuff in the past, projecting stuff into the future. We're not here. We're not here in this space in the now. So that mind-body connection can be cultivated, built on, that muscle can be strengthened by doing those practices that were mentioned. Now, here's number 2. We can learn the power of stillness. Oh my gosh. We live in a modern society that is antithetical to stillness. It's go, 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 and go some more. Do, and do some more. So the mind ends up in this endless chatterbox, and it's filled with stuff like fear, judgment, and anxiety. And so creating moments of stillness, whether it's through meditation, mindfulness techniques, that's how we start to break the cycle. But that busy mind isn't going to cooperate. No way, because it's addicted to this frenetic way of action and being. And then that gets programmed into our bodies. And so our bodies are also addicted to wanting more, wanting that dopamine hit. Even brief moments of silence, though, and stillness will start to cultivate profound clarity. And why is this important? Because it will help to connect us to a deeper truth, to a truth that underpins all of who and what we are. And that's why a lot of us find ourselves confused, because we're so disconnected from that deeper sense of truth. So cultivating stillness, really, really powerful. The next one I'd like to explore is spending some meaningful time in nature. So no doubt, if you've ever spent any amount of time in nature, which hopefully you have, you know how profoundly powerful that can be. Walking through a forest can have a really calming effect on you. Walking through an open field can have a really calming effect on you. Being at the beach on an ocean front can be very calming for you. So nature isn't logical. No, it's not. Nature is deeply intuitive. It's deeply dynamic. And in many ways, it almost has a feeling of chaos. There's so much stuff going on, and yet within that, there's this inherent intelligence and beauty. It is ultimately healing. It effortlessly calms the busiest of minds if we allow it to, like if we give ourselves that space, right? And reconnects us to something bigger than ourselves. This overactive, logical, rational mind is so egoically self-consumed. When we get into nature, it's like, nice. Another thing that we can do is on a clear night. If you live in a city, this is harder, but on a clear night, going outside and looking at the stars. In big cities, you don't necessarily see the stars, but you could look up at the moon, right? And that in itself has a healing kind of element to it as well. But getting into nature, hiking, camping, if you're so adventurous, or just simply sitting under a tree. If you live in an urban environment, ideally there's some trees around. Can you just go into a local park, for example, and sit yourself at a tree and just feel a connection to it? Trees hold so much deep, powerful wisdom. You can feel it if you allow yourself. So nature has this profound insight that logic just, can't compete with. It might try, but it can't. The fourth thing I'd like to talk about is about this idea of cleansing your life. How do you perform a life cleanse? Well, this to me looks like detoxifying your environment. So, what is happening around you, what you live in, what your office space looks like, all of that informs how you be in the world, right? So, how could we detoxify our environments on all levels? Well, I'd also like you to think about the foods, how you're nourishing yourself. Could you perhaps get rid of some of the processed foods, or maybe some of those comfort foods that maybe aren't the healthiest? Could you potentially reduce negative media exposure? So one of the things that I've done in the last year, and it'll be a year, it's about 10 months now, I stopped the news. And I had been a political junkie all of my life. And I tell you, cleaning that stuff out of my life creates just space for a lot less negativity, because when you watch that stuff, you become brainwashed by all of that negative framing of reality. So also there can be, just in terms of streaming services, a lot of the entertainment content that's available now is very dark. It's very, very dark. It's very heavy messaging, dark messaging, dystopian kind of stuff. So we can avoid that. We can choose to avoid that. We can also distance ourselves from relationships that don't serve us well. Sometimes we stay in relationships, friendships that can be, or it can even be your intimate relationships, when they've long since served their purpose and there's a lot of toxicity there. So you can make some choices around what that's going to look like, choosing to not subject yourself. And if it's that intimate relationship, your primary relationship, making choices around, well, how can we do some work to heal this, or what other options should we be exploring? We often underestimate how significant these factors are in influencing our overall mental and emotional well-being. So when we're in those places, the overthinking, logical, rational mind can just be spiraling out of control, trying to make sense of things. So when we balance the logical aspects of their mind with the intuitive nature of things, then remarkable changes can start to happen. I've lived this. And when we start to tap in to, and I hit my chest when I do that, more of a heart-centered being as opposed to all the stuff up here, we become more vibrant. Life becomes more meaningful and joyful. And in midlife in particular, I want us to think about this stuff that we're going through not as a crisis at all, but it's really an opportunity to wake the F up, to wake ourselves up. And, looking at, am I ready to escape this overthinking trap that's maybe held me captive for way too long, and step into some clarity, step into more fulfillment? If you find this approach valuable, these ideas resonate with you, please subscribe. Please continue to follow me, and reach out if you have any comments, questions, or maybe even you want to have a clarity call with me. That would be great. So let's continue this journey together. I thank you for watching this, and I'll see you next time.